The story begins on a quiet street in a suburban neighborhood where everything always looked peaceful. Freshly trimmed lawns, identical mailboxes, and houses that seemed copy-pasted from the same brochure. But behind that calm surface was an HOA board that loved control a little too much. They liked to flex their authority, and if someone didn't bow to them, they made sure life became difficult. I had seen them bully neighbors before, sending fines for trash bins being out 10 minutes too long, threatening people over paint shades that were one tone off, and even arguing over the height of flower beds. But I never thought I would become their next target, until the day they decided that a piece of my own land wasn't actually mine. It started with a letter, a perfectly folded, extremely formal-looking envelope tucked between my bills. Inside was a notice from the HOA stating that a portion of the land on the side of my property technically fell under community management and that I needed to remove my fence because they were planning to use the area for a community pathway beautification project. It didn't make sense. That section of land had always been part of my lot, clearly marked when I bought the house. But the wording of the notice was confident, almost threatening, like they had already decided the land was theirs and I just needed to get out of the way. At first, I tried to handle it politely. I went to the next HOA meeting and calmly explained that the area they were talking about was part of my deed. But the board members stared at me like I was inconvenient background noise. One of them, the president, even smirked and said, "Property lines can be tricky. A lot of things change over the years." When I insisted that nothing changed and my deed very clearly showed the boundaries, she cut me off and said, "Well, unless you can provide updated documentation, we'll proceed as planned." It was obvious. They weren't confused. They were counting on me not knowing my own rights. Over the next week, things escalated. I came home one afternoon and found HOA contractors putting small stakes into the soil on the disputed strip of land. They were marking it like it belonged to them. When I confronted them, they shrugged and said they were just following orders. The HOA sent another letter warning me that if I interfered with the construction, I would be fined daily. They were behaving like they already owned my property, like my voice didn't matter. That was the moment I knew this wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a power move. So I went searching. I pulled out my closing documents, the old survey map, and every scrap of paperwork I had kept since buying the house. And then I found it. An official survey certificate from the county dated just a few years before I purchased the property. It clearly showed the exact boundaries of my land. The area the HOA wanted? It was unquestionably inside my property line. But that wasn't even the best part. Attached to the certificate was a signed acknowledgement from the developer stating that my lot had unique boundary adjustments due to terrain features, meaning the HOA had no authority over that land. None. Zero. They were trying to take land that they legally couldn't touch. With the document in hand, I went to the county office to verify everything. The clerk pulled up the parcel map, compared it to my paperwork, and nodded. "You're completely in the right," she said. "If they try to move forward with anything, they'll be violating property law." That sentence alone was better than any victory speech. I asked for a certified copy stamped by the county because I knew the HOA would try to deny anything I showed them unless it was official. The next HOA meeting arrived, and the room was packed because rumors had spread about the Pathway project. The board sat at their table with their usual forced smiles, pretending everything was routine. When it was my turn to speak, I placed the stamped document on the table in front of them. The president barely glanced at it before rolling her eyes until she noticed the county seal. Suddenly, her entire expression changed. Her forced confidence cracked. She whispered something to the treasurer, who quickly started flipping through their own paperwork, clearly hoping to find something that would contradict mine. But there was nothing. They had no authority. They had no claim, and they knew it. I calmly explained that proceeding with construction would be a direct violation of county property law, and that any attempt to alter or access my land without permission would result in legal action. The room went silent. Homeowners behind me whispered things like, "They seriously tried to take his property?" or "Unbelievable." The board members had no explanation, only excuses. The president muttered something about a miscommunication, but no one believed her. They backed down immediately, canceled the project, and sent a written apology a week later, an apology so insincere and forced I almost laughed while reading it. But here's the twist. My little victory had bigger consequences. Other homeowners started checking their own property documents and found several questionable decisions the HOA had made over the years. People who had been scared to speak up suddenly realized the board wasn't all powerful, just confident bullies who never expected anyone to challenge them. Within 2 months, 3 board members resigned, including the president. The HOA was forced to rewrite parts of the bylaws to prevent future overreach. And the land they tried to take? It's still mine. Absolutely, undeniably mine. Looking back, the craziest part is how easily they would have gotten away with it if I hadn't kept my documents, if I hadn't stood my ground, if I hadn't taken the time to check the laws myself. HOAs count on people being too busy or too intimidated to fight back. But sometimes all it takes is one stamped piece of paper, one document to stop them in their tracks. The lesson? Know your rights, keep your records, and never assume the HOA is acting in good faith. Because when they tried to steal my land, that one document not only saved my property, it exposed everything they were hiding behind their fake smiles and community improvement lies.